lecture, I have also organized a guest lecture wherein a founder of an NGO will be speaking to all of you, sometimes probably after 2 weeks or so. So, hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. My PC had to restart. So, till when could you hear? At what time did we disconnect?
Ma'am, you are going to present.
Okay, fine. So, as part of this lecture, this is just a brief overview of social entrepreneurship to you. The thing is that as part of this lecture, I have also requested an external speaker to come up. So, she will be talking to all of you probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, the idea behind this lecture is to give you a brief overview of social entrepreneurship so that when she comes and talks to you, you guys can make use of that interaction and ask certain questions that you would like to ask from her. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Okay, let's start. Then, so is my PPT visible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So basically, a social entrepreneur is an individual who is mission driven and who desires to deliver a social value to the people who are underprivileged or minority or not necessarily maybe receiving the benefits that the other major portions of the society may be facing. So it's a bit different from the normal business type of entrepreneurs, which we shall be looking at as we go ahead. But the basic idea is that their intention and goal is focused towards social emancipation, not necessarily towards making lots of money and finances. Obviously, money is important to sustain the growth and the service that the organization is providing, but there is a deeper goal of social entrepreneurship or social entrepreneur. So let's try to do an activity, a small activity. I would like you to go to this link and try to answer in one word any social entrepreneur you remember. Is it all right? So just see if you can access this poll. Please go to this link and answer the question of any social entrepreneur that you remember. As and when you write the response, I'll keep receiving the responses here. So are you able to access that link? Okay, yeah, go on. So please write your responses. So this sort of creates a word cloud. Anyone else you can remember? Probably the founder of e-waste in India. Yes. COVID. So bigger the word, that means higher the responses of students who are providing that. And you can think of international figures as well, not necessarily national figures. Yes, Mohammed Yunus, of course, the founder of Grameen Bank. It's interesting that Bill Gates' name is also coming because he may have started as an entrepreneur, but as he made progress, he started using the finances to create social value as well. So in many ways, he is also a kind of social entrepreneur also, but much later in his journey. What about the founder of e-waste recycle in India? I'm sure e-waste group may be familiar with that name. Who is Aman? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Ma'am, he is a YouTuber.
Aman Dhattarwal. Aman Dhattarwal.
Okay, so who is he?
Ma'am, basically,
He is a
he's
motivational speaker.
Okay, all right. Great. So from this, I think we have a brief idea of few of the social entrepreneurs, and still our dictionary is quite limited, but you get an idea of who the social entrepreneurs are, and as we move forward, we will be also talking about some of the social ills which can form a likely prospective project for working on something like this. So thank you for your participation on this. I'll just take a screenshot. All right. So thank you for participating in that activity. Moving forward, what do you think are the differences between a person who is a social entrepreneur and a normal entrepreneur, according to you? So basically, they differ in the end goal and how they define success. In normal entrepreneur, which are for profit, their success is defined by the commercial success and how much they are able to make. They are mostly goal driven. However, non-profit or social entrepreneurs, organizations, and civil society organizations, they are more focused on the value that they are able to create in a society, especially among the downtrodden and the poor socioeconomic positions, or someone who have been, marginalized in some manner. And so their main focus is to improve the quality of life of these people such that the inequalities and inequities inherent in our system due to some reasons do not make it extremely difficult for them to live a life of dignity. So I'm sure you may have come across lots of non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations in this regard. And one more important thing to remember is that they are not only focused on communities, but also they also heavily participate in political movements in order to drive the some knowledge or information or some kind of revolution in a country. Civil society organizations are extremely active because they are basically the voice of people and the communities. So as you can see from this figure, even NGOs can sometimes be for profit, and that depends on their goal, etc. However, the main thing that always stands out is their desire to improve the quality of life of people. So, and it's difficult to say that they are not totally money based. Obviously, without finances, it is difficult to sustain any organization. However, the main focus of such kind of organizations is to remain self-sufficient such that they are not overly dependent, and to maintain that reserve of finance so that any activity that comes up, they're able to take it and move forward. So if you have been very closely associated with NGOs, uh, you would gradually learn that finances are always a big problem in the NGOs. But over the period of time, as NGOs grow and as their work is improving and the visibility is increasing, so it's easier to get donors, not only from national donors, but also from international donors. So at this point, I'm curious to ask a question. You may have come across lots of international organizations working in India, trying to solve certain problems in India. What are your perspective on international organizations working in India? What are the pros and cons of it? Was my question clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So do you guys have any thoughts on that? For example, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they often work in hunger or poverty related areas in India. And what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of an international such kind of organization working for India or outside its national borders? Or what is the advantages if you're not able to think about the disadvantages? Has anyone ever visited any NGO? I understand that as school students, we don't get much time to explore, but now that you are in college, I think you must try to visit some nearby NGOs around your area and try to go and meet people and try to understand what they are doing and how they are doing.
Maybe the disadvantages include the number of checks and processes that they have to go through the local authorities where they're working.
Yeah, so that's a disadvantage for them. Yeah,
And advantage is because they have a widespread coverage over the world, so they get huge funding easily.
yes, yes. One more drawback that comes up with this is that sometimes, organizations who are based on foreign soil and working in like other countries, sometimes they may be furthering the problems that they want to solve rather than the problems that a country particularly needs. So this kind of problem also surfaces quite often, but nevertheless, and they have been quite useful, especially when they collaborate with local NGOs and try to work towards it. So, in social entrepreneurship, networking is extremely, extremely vital for the proliferation of the objective of the organization and for the success of the organization. In fact, it is so important that when an organization is growing, especially networking plays a very important role in gaining resources, spreading the word, and keeping on moving. So, when we talk about social entrepreneur and a regular entrepreneur or commercial entrepreneur, there are some common traits, but there are also some stark differences across the two. And it's not to say that there is a competition between the two or one is better than the other, because both of them are serving their own purposes. But it is important to know that how they are different from each other so that we can understand how they operate and what their ethos are and what can be expected from it. Unfortunately, however, as in civil society organization grows or NGO grows, they tend to erode from the main values from which they began and might end up becoming profit seeking NGOs rather than focused on community welfare. So as you can see that the common aspects of both kinds is innovation, extremely committed to their process and to their goals. There's lots of leadership going on in both the sectors. They're dedicated, persistent, and risk takers. So these are the common things. However, how these are used to attain the objectives are very, very different in both the profit oriented entrepreneur and the social entrepreneurs. However, as you show in the word cloud, that few of the entrepreneurs which may have begun as profit oriented or technological, they have gradually made their way out also in the social sector, understanding the need of the social problems in the world, and they have used their money to improve the quality of life of people in the world who may be victims of a system which is disproportionate to the needs of people. Any questions here or any comments you want to make? All right. So for a social endeavor, there are four main things that should always be kept in mind. What is the social impact of idea? How much is the creativity involved? Of course, that is also a part of the other entrepreneurship. The quality of entrepreneurship and the moral fiber. So, among your innovation projects, how many of you think your idea belongs to the sector of social entrepreneurship? So, which of the ideas you think the team members think that their idea qualifies to be an example of social entrepreneurship? You can speak out. So you can actually speak out the project name. I may not remember. Okay, COVID Infobot, stock market. E-waste management. Okay, so it is important to keep these things also in mind, because when you know the nature of your project, it becomes easier to navigate it as we go forward. But the important question always that comes up before you even talk about how to do is, what do you think triggers people to become social entrepreneurs? What is that driving factor? How does the idea get birthed into their mind? And I mean, what exactly is the most important ingredient when it comes to social entrepreneurs? Any thoughts on that?
Wanting to do good in the world.
Okay, so they want to serve the society in some manner. But don't we all want to serve the society? At what threshold do they really decide to take the action beyond that desire?
Ma'am, I feel that after a certain period of time, every personality gains a kind of a influencing power over the society. For example, if Elon Musk says something at present, there would be a huge population who would want to follow him.
Right.
So when they achieve that kind of a status, that each step which they take is in turn going to influence a lot of other people.
Hmm.
So that is the moment where they decide like they should serve the society in a better way.
Or
And
they can, yeah.
yeah, what I think is after achieving all the materialistic goals, one can have the feeling of getting reputation and self satisfaction by helping others and helping our society.
Okay, so but here you're giving examples of people who have already established themselves financially and have gained sort of celebrity status. What about those founders who start from a very ground level and they decide to pursue some idea and then started from there as a social entrepreneurs? What motivates these kind of people?
Ma'am, they might get motivated that they did something good for the world and it will, and the thing they did will continue for ages. So they did something fruitful for the community.
Okay, so what do you think the role of empathy would be in such kind of endeavors? So, for example, I'm not sure how perfect example is it is, but Missionaries of Charity, which was also founded by Mother Teresa a long time back, she hardly had anything when she started coming into the streets of Kolkata. And now that we visit her organization, we can see it is flourishing. So, what do you think? And she is just an example, a very good example, in fact. But what do you think she must have thought at that time, or what may have triggered her when she had actually nothing? Or even for that matter, let's say Baba Amte in Maharashtra is also quite a name. So most of the times, people who have gone through those very conditions and they do not want to accept it. Yes, they want to help the people and they are passionate about it. So most of the time, people who have been through certain kind of experiences that they feel are unjust, unacceptable, and what they have experienced nobody else should face in the coming generations, these people may be motivated to take certain actions to improve upon it. For example, all of us uh, are living in a slightly better way because of the struggles of our previous generation. And we may have to fight some battles so that our next generation can live a better life than we are living. So it's always a process. Sometimes it's a personal calling, sometimes it's a intelligence choice, but it is very difficult to create impact in any sector unless and until you really feel involved with it, but in a detached manner. Weber, would you like to explain how Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada from ISKCON is a good example?
Ma'am, basically, I don't have much of the knowledge, but what I know is that when he started, he didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So when he moved from India to America, and there I think some revolt was going on, something like that. He gathered people. I don't have that much of knowledge, but that was a good example.
Okay. One more example, if I'm not sure if you have come across Yoganand Paramahansa is there, who revolutionized foreign countries with Indian yoga and yogic practices. And now again, they are trying to raise the consciousness of the world through their activities. So it is not limited to a particular area, but one common denominator is that you really have to feel one with your cause. Like there's an objective separation, but you really have to feel about it, and that can only happen when you move out of your books, out of your classrooms, out of your lectures, into the real world and try to understand the problems. That's right, Arjun. He did translate Bhagavad Gita in many different languages. So the thing is, I mean, at least according to me, uh, when a social idea is born, what you really want, what you will normally see is the desire to create value in people's life and in turn reduce the suffering in certain manner by either helping them provide resources, knowledge, information, or opportunities or platforms wherein people can flourish. So you really have to care for it, but for it to take a better and stronger shape, that care has to transform into action. At some point of time, when an idea is born, first of all, you think about it. Like, for example, in your innovation projects, then you read about it. The more you read, the more you gain knowledge, the more you immerse yourself in it. You get to understand the extent of the problem. And getting familiar with it, after some point of time, you ask yourself, okay, now what should I do? Now, from that step, it really begins the journey of your own pursuit of even trying to reduce some social in the society. And it although the scale of the organization or the vision matters, but what matters really is, most importantly, creating differences in whichever way we can. I mean, it doesn't have to be an internationally reputed organization, or maybe it is suffering from financial disasters, or it is barely sustaining itself. But ultimately, as founders of social organizations or organizations catering to the welfare of the society, what really matters is, are people who are associated with benefiting in certain manner, are their lives getting better? So, and sometimes, you should read a book, The Road to Character, in which the author says that sometimes to fulfill ourselves, we have to forget ourselves. So social entrepreneurship is very closely related to that aspect. So talking aside, we can discuss lots of theories of social entrepreneurship and the steps to become a social entrepreneur, or steps to identify a problem. But what is always the most effective way to learn is to do something. For example, long back in 2017, I started an online magazine related to women empowerment. So what I would do is that I would visit India in the rural and tribal areas and interview women and write their stories in the magazine. So it went on for around 2 years, and that was quite a nice experience. And I got to know about people which I could never have imagined reading about in any book. And so that opened some ways or some ideas in which I thought that, in fact, it was a huge realization that there is lots to be done and one lifetime may not be enough. So similarly in your case, and that I learned quite late in my life, since but you are in your first year, you must actively try to become a part of the community that you belong to. Maybe in your own area, try to search in Google today NGOs near me and try to understand them and request an exposure visit to them, and they would be more than happy to discuss with you what they're trying to do. This is how our exposure expands, our mind expands, and then we start linking our academic learning to real life learning, and that is how the birth of a social idea happens. So since you're taking this lecture, do make sure that at least you visit at least one organization sometime when you find it feasible, because it will clearly transform the way you look at things. When we live in our lives in a very sheltered existence, it is very difficult to realize um, the many problems that may be plaguing the people around, and so much of opportunity lies over there. And so start small, but start somewhere, and then one step leads to the other. So in that case, volunteering and doing internships really helps a lot when you are trying to understand how a social organization works, especially after your first year. If you might get some months off, you might like to do a virtual internship with such kind of organizations to learn more about the nitty-gritty of these things. So suddenly nobody starts with an idea. It's just that they have to stay with it, work on it, try to understand it, and gather their team. Networking remains the most important thing. So even if you want to start a blog about certain social problems, start off it. And from there, it just snowballs into bigger and bigger things. So as I mentioned already, like, if you really want to understand the social aspects of doing any business or creating any value, you have to move out of your classrooms into the real world and try to understand how the real world matches with the world that is in our minds. And trust me, I mean, that's a very fulfilling experience, because my research is in health. I've been exploring India for the past 4 years, and the experiences have been extremely overwhelming and very humbling. So, like for example, these organizations, normally when we talk about successful social organizations which have been working in this sector, we take big names like Melinda Gates Foundation or the NAS Foundation, Humsafar Trust, or all these kind of organizations. But they all started somewhere, and most of them, so the most of organizations that you're seeing on your screen right now, and they are related to health organizations working in rural and tribal India. Anyone familiar with any one of these? Heard of any one of these? Or the cities they are located in? So when you read about the history of these organizations, one thing which clearly you see is that they have been started by most of the people who studied in good organizations and great colleges and universities, and realized that the place where their education and knowledge was most useful was the place where nobody was willing to go. And that is how the idea and these organizations were born, and they have been quite successful. And the fifth organization, the Indian Osteogenesis Imperfecta Foundation, Bangalore. So the founder of this organization has agreed to talk to you and share her experiences with you. So as part of this, so as part of this theme of the lecture, you will be able to better understand the depth of social entrepreneurship when she talks about her journey. Any questions till now? So before we even start talking about the how part of it, I will always focus on the why part of it and the what part of it. And since this is an elementary course on entrepreneurship, I would always encourage you to take time out from your academic learning and start exploring the world around you, especially in your graduate years, because after that, again, we have to live a certain kind of existence. So, your graduate years are a good time to invest in understanding the other aspects of the world and the social problems which are inherent in this. So, that is extremely important when we talk about the birth of social idea. Now, we will do another activity. This time you will have to answer the question, what social problems make you think or impact you deeply? So if given a chance to do some kind of project, what problem would you tackle? What social problem would you tackle? So let me just activate it and then you can give your responses. So can you just try, the link is the same. Am I connected to all of you? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to give the
No, ma'am.
responses?
No,
What is it saying?
Ma'am, it's saying waiting for you to present.
Okay, sorry. Now I've activated.
yes, ma'am. Now it's available.
Okay, so write about the social problems that make you, that really touch your heart. Education, hunger, yes. Any organizations you know which you are working in the hunger sector in India? Ignorance. Sexual assault, yes. No, herein you are really thinking. Responses are coming quite fast. Discrimination. So what do you mean when you say stray? Caste, inequality, child labor. Akshay Patra Foundation, yes. Wow. So someone who has mentioned traveling, would you want to elaborate on that? So the most common problems that we can see, what can you see after looking at this word cloud? What are your major reductions? Anybody? So poverty remains a huge problem, then child labor, hunger, discrimination, education, health has not come up much. Conservation is there, water problems are there. So I'm glad to know that you have been thinking about all this and you are a bit aware of the social problems that are plaguing our community and world as a whole. So I'll just show you the responses. So this was the word cloud that was obtained. Anyone wants to make some observations out of this word cloud? So we can see that there is no dearth of problems that we are surrounded by, and that means there is no paucity of opportunities for us to do something. And again, it is not about the scale at which you try to transform things, but the intention behind that and how do you begin with it. And trust me, it's a very fulfilling journey when you pick up a social area that interests you and you start exploring it in your free time or even as a hobby. So it's a deeply fulfilling experience. And that's how you begin to understand social entrepreneurship from the very basics. And as you move forward in the journey, you understand it. So a very simple example. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay, so a very simple example I would say is that most of the down-breaking decisions that the Supreme Court has taken, they have been raised by organizations which were working for the people's rights or against discrimination, be it on any basis. So most of the times when the public interest litigations have been lodged in the courts and district courts, they have been lodged by civil society organizations as well. So for example, I'm not sure if you are aware, but there are organizations which have filed public interest litigations preventing the existence of fast food outlets near schools, not within 500 meters of the radius. And so the thing is that ideas and social entrepreneurship ideas, at one hand, they do help the people, but on the other hand, they play an extremely important role in stimulating the political voice of people and, exposing the issues that generally we don't talk about. Do you agree with this, or do you have any examples to give? And some of these problems definitely cannot be solved by civil society organizations alone. We always need government support in that, and that is why we always talk about public-private partnerships. And but civil society organizations play an extremely important role in politically galvanizing the people and giving voice to the people so that they can ask for their rights as well. Is that clear? Did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
enjoy the activity? Like, how was it? Was it fun or did it force you to think? All right. So we have already talked about these organizations, and I'm not talking about internationally renowned organizations because, when we are actually connected with these organizations, we can see what is happening inside of them. So personally, I visited all these organizations. I stayed for around 1 month with all of them, still connected to them. So that gave me quite a good overview of how they are operating, the challenges they are facing, and how they are trying to create the value that they are trying to create. So I strongly encourage all of you to at least have a look at the NGOs around your areas and take a chance and visit them sometime when it's safe for you to do. It will really open your eyes. Trust me. So, but sometimes when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's easy to, get swayed away by all the good things and the glamour and the value and the coverage of news and everything. But we must always remember, which we often forget, that everything in life is a process. We are goal-oriented beings, but it is the process which ultimately takes us to our goal. And same with entrepreneurship or innovation or research or even social entrepreneurship. It has to begin from somewhere. So the steps become clear as you go ahead in the journey, but you have to start somewhere, irrespective of the fact you're starting small or you're starting big. This is a short video that I would want you to see. I'll post it on the classroom. I'm not sure we have time, but if we have time, I'll show you. It's basically showing you, it's a National Geographic clip which shows how a butterfly is born from caterpillar. So it's a very painful process it has to undergo, and same with any project you take, and exactly same with social entrepreneurship. You have to have some idea that really speaks to you. You gain knowledge, you network, and you start creating something to help them. And it's an overgoing process. Oh, and to understand social entrepreneurship better, I think Archana Ravindran will be coming. So Archana Ravindran is the founder of Indian Osteogenesis Imperfecta Foundation. I'm not sure if you know about what osteogenesis imperfecta is. Have you heard about this disease before?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so it's a genetic disorder in which the kids' bones keep on breaking. So they have multiple fractures, as a result of which they're never able to grow into height. So they are of the same height and they hardly find it easy to grow, and it's also called as the brittle bone disease. It's like their bones keep on breaking as they are growing and they have to have multiple fractures, and sometimes they are put rod in their bodies so that they can properly grow. So as a result of which people who, and this is a genetic disorder, can be checked when someone is expecting a child, and there are tests for it. The thing is that people who have OI find it very difficult to get education, earn livelihood, and become financially independent. So Indian Osteogenesis Imperfecta Foundation is one of the organizations which works for the people in this sector, and Archana Ravindran is the founder of that organization, and she herself has osteogenesis imperfecta. And there are grades to this disease, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. And when she talks about it, you will be able to understand better. I'm still thinking on how to evaluate your understanding on social entrepreneurship from the very basic point of view. Like we saw in the word cloud, all of you are passionate about some kind of idea, and it would be nice to think deeply on it. But before I assign this assignment, I want to understand, when is your semester ending?
Ma'am, don't know the perfect date, but it may be about 1.5 months more.
And when are your exams? Final?
No
Ma'am, don't
idea,
know.
ma'am.
Okay. So in that case, I think we do have time for one more group activity in which you might like, so each group might like to select one topic of social importance and explain if you were to develop an organization to solve the problem, that social problem. So your group tries to think over it and you are in the process of developing that organization to solve that social problem. But before that, I would like you to think about that topic of social importance, explain why that topic is important to you as a group, and explain different solutions of the same problem and listing the pros and cons of each, and finally select the most feasible solution to target that social problem. And it's not a written assignment, even though you will have to write a script. I would like you to verbally record it. So for example, in the audio, you talk about the social problem that seems of importance to you. You explain why it is important. You explain 2 or 3 solutions that have come up in your group members, and then finally you wind it up by explaining which solution you think you would go forward with to solve the problem. And since there are 21 or 22 groups, it will be difficult to allow for same problems. So I would ideally want all the problems, 22 problems, to be different. So you might start sending your responses by today, and it is by first come, first serve. So repetition of the topics is not allowed for this particular group audio essay. Is that too much to ask for?
No, ma'am.
So will it be feasible for you to take up this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the audio has to be only of 3 minutes, and it's a group project, and I'm sure you would want to participate in it and explore more about it. So this is how, when we talk about creating something, we always talk about the problems. We start with problems, and then we gradually move to the solutions. So as part of the small activity for this particular topic, I would want you to do this, and I will post it also. And deadline mostly will be in the first week of July. So don't worry about that. And so that was for today's lecture. This is a book recommendation coming your way, The Power of Unreasonable People. So it talks about lots of social entrepreneurs which have tried to solve social problems, and they have gone against the tide and try to deeply understand. And a book summary is available on this PDF link. I will upload this link on the classroom also for those of you who want to read the summary of the book. Is that all right?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, if you can upload the means book also.
If I'm able to find the PDF version of the book, I will do that. Otherwise, the summary is already there. I'll try to find out that, Vishal, don't worry. Yeah. And I would like to also remind you that of the tomorrow's quiz. Unfortunately, last time some of the responses were not obtained. This time I've tried to make a setting in which you can get the response of your submitted quiz, and that should solve the problem. But since this time I've given you 3 hours,